not that far away.
Hey, Mom! Come to the forest where the more adventurous you lives. Check out discovertheforest.org for cool places nearby. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. All of those places are to say that we're committed to the mission of having live local talk radio here in the borderland, having some relative success with it. We keep doing it in any case, so as long as I'm breathing and talking about it, we'll keep doing what we do best, and that is focusing on the issues that affect us here in the borderland and discussing them, because no one else is going to get to these kind of points and the impacts that we feel like we do who live here in this region. So that's why we're on all those social media pages, as we have Flauca Jimenez dropping that like and also chiming in. Good afternoon to you as well. Again, you can chime in throughout the show over on those social pages. That's one of the added benefits besides getting out there. You can see, the show and actually see it, because we have the video up over there in case you've missed that finer point here. Sometimes have graphics when we're talking about some of those detailed stories here, but in any case, it's also a way to chime in throughout the program. We will have those phone lines open a little bit later on, as we usually do towards the end of this coming hour, but in the meantime, a lot to talk about today. One, there's actually a New Mexico special session going on, because even in the wake of the, depending on who you ask, success, possibilities, or potential problems coming along with New Mexico legalization of marijuana. And John Brazelton with his focus as well chiming in. Congrats to the Kansas Jayhawks for their win in the 2022 Men's NCAA Basketball Championships. Absolutely here. As we talked about this past weekend, of course, talking about the Texas Western as the former previous Texas Western College, also one know it became UTEP. Their previous win back in 1966 that Baylor also had. So, I mean, it's the season to talk about that kind of thing. So I'll take it in due form here, as I know that there's a lot of madness in the month of March and a little bit of April here, of course, that comes along with that. But locally here in the borderland, of course, we got that New Mexico special session underway, looking at increased spending, potential payments going out to New Mexico residents, again, even as there are those possibilities, potentials, and problems, depending on who you ask, coming along with that state-level legalization of cannabis. Some warnings going back out that, well, longtime listeners of this program will have heard already, but it bears repeating for the general community. Plus, some of our other listeners' favorite topics here, a public art project being discussed for Ascarate Lake and Park area, something to not exactly rival the X, but, well, scales are similar in mind here, but maybe there won't be any public spending along with that, if you believe that kind of a sector of the conversation here, but we'll be getting to that and a whole lot more. Plus, going to be joined in studio here by Robby Gray, editor of El Paso Inc., to talk about some of their major reporting going on in our region, kind of one of our subplots on this program as well, also talking about, of course, what is going on with economic development, what is going on with new business development in the area, but also just how business currents are moving, hiring, the labor force issues, and of course, people making their own decisions to maybe step out of it entirely and just, well, be their own boss. So all of that we'll be talking about with him in this next segment as well. So again, in New Mexico, starting right off the top here, there is a special session that has been called now. It works a little bit different for New Mexico. They're pretty constant, whereas in Texas, we've got that mad dash that's usually only about that first half of the every other year, though it dragged on a bit last year, and there's been some whisperings about potentials for being called back in. I would be surprised if Texas Governor Greg Abbott does anything similar, but of course, New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham actually did call this one, and one of the major items being reported on by a lot of the outlets up in New Mexico, potential of cash payouts of $500 to $1,000 for New Mexicans as a result of this. Now, New Mexico politics are a little bit different. We don't delve into it too much here, but this session, it came actually ahead of a potential extraordinary session because of a major spending bill that got, the kibosh put on it at the end of New Mexico's last session about a month and change ago. And the new legislators were considering just calling back their own because the spending bill that had ballooned up to about $200 million by some estimates had, gotten the veto from the governor for saying it had too many appropriations, 500 or more individual projects included in it by some counts. And while a lot of them did have some justification or supposedly had the listing on them, New Mexico Governor, again, Grisham said, no, we're not going to do it, put the veto on it. So they are back in session again as of today with only two major items there on the agenda of passing this quote unquote junior bill that would, again, potentially have some of those cash payments and some of this other appropriations that were missing from this last one. But of course, this comes as New Mexico is, Senator Lujan Grisham anyway, is celebrating what is going on with cannabis in the state of New Mexico. Again, some estimates are varying, some local-ish numbers coming out. Of course, the State Department isn't totally up to speed, but some estimates put it on the under about 500,000 down in different parts of our region with that first day of cannabis sales. Though some of the commentary I've seen has pointed out that where did the money that people were spending on this coming from? Was this something where it's part of that pent-up demand money people weren't spending, or as is, in my opinion, probably maybe a little bit more the case, stuff being spent on this as opposed to other items of potential importance, or maybe investment, self-improvement? I don't know. Define it how you want, but I mean, it does raise an interesting question. Like, sure, extra revenue, spending, economic activity, you're not going to find me saying much against it. But in this particular case, where there isn't like it's not exactly a durable goods category, I guess you should say, though head shops are apparently seeing a bit of an uptick in business within the land of enchantment, even as I saw that yesterday, and it comes to mind here, the Head Stand here in El Paso announcing its closure. I think that's probably due more to personal reasons than anything, because if I have to imagine that there would be a time of practical renaissance for paraphernalia-related industries, shall we say, it would be, right about now, as it's on our doorstep, but I'm not in that business and have no plans or intentions to be here, so maybe there's something I'm missing. In any case, New Mexico looking at some extra spending coming into this after the previous spending bill was gone off, but a lot of other priorities happening in the land of enchantment as well, all seemingly built up around this idea of increased revenues. Again, depending on how you slice it, the cannabis sales, a total of about 5 million, but that also includes the recreational sales, including then, of course, the medicinal sales into that. You actually end up with about 3 million and change for the actual recreational sales across the state of New Mexico for that first weekend. And some more interesting notes that have come out about that is that there's the possibility of starting up a cannabis retail business. Flocka and Menace saying Amazon. We'll see if that happens. I mean, Amazon, 2-day delivery for products, shall we say? I mean, even though there is the, how should I say this, stigma that is attached with such things, and if you're shipping things in the mail that are of a paraphernalia nature, that's actually not a place that it's interesting you brought that up. That's not one I've necessarily actually looked into, because I know that, some notable figures from around the country, such as Tommy Chong, some of his previous charges weren't necessarily just possession-based, but also the selling of paraphernalia. So I got to wonder how that would then impact, international or interstate shipping. Because when someone who take a product that is otherwise illegal across state lines, that's when at least the feds step in, among other things. And also that note coming out today that, again, makes sense if you think about it, but I guess if you haven't thought about it, which I guess I give a little bit, I underestimate probably on the balance here, people just not considering the consequences. The CBP and Border Patrol reminding people ever so gently that, yeah, the federal checkpoints are still here, guys, and if you're bringing illicit substances, federally illegal substances through them, you're going to have a bad time. But I guess that needs to be said. Adjustments made for the clueless is a constant issue here. John Brazelton saying why, when El Paso City and County roads have potholes big enough to shallow swallow a big truck or SUV, El Paso politicians keep spending money on unneeded projects. So referencing one of our other major topics of the day, city council, well, I guess county commissioners in this case, discussing that potential for a new, public art project down at Ascarate Park, that of course being the county park and a lot of county facilities around down there, if you've ever seen it here. Juarez artist Pedro Francisco Rodriguez y Delgado talking about a complementary project, I guess would be the right way to put it, for the Ekis that is incredibly noticeable if you're even within anywhere in sight, in like line of sight, so basically not on the other side of the mountain from the border here, but a different one. He calls the Ekis a national monument, but then this one, again, according to our news partners over at KFOX 14 and CBS 4 local, that this sculpture would be binational. This sculpture is for the border, for the fronterizos, for both countries and both cities, kind of like a frame and then a door into it. Again, you can see the pictures for yourself. I'll see if we can pop them up in the feed over here a little bit later, but that one potentially, and I mean, of course, it's going to be on public property, so there's going to have to be some expenditures of some kind, but El Paso County Judge Ricardo Samaniego saying that, he says that there might not be any or minimal public expenditures on this, saying that, again, quote, there are a lot of entrepreneurs wanting to work on this, and that they are ready, again, continuing the quote here, they are ready to move forward, but we need to look at some ideas. For example, the name of it, they're calling it Border Alliance. We're not crazy about it, but we're going to do community reach out and involvement. So potential expenditures there, among other things. But again, the idea of there not being, focused on, we'll see how it goes here. And Andrew Zignorant bringing up a whole lot of, look at your language choice there, and it'll tell you more than anything we need to. And things going on in the community is kind of literally the focus of the show here. So welcome to the program. In any case here, glad you're paying attention for a moment. And anyway, we got to take that first break of the hour here right now. So coming out of the break, we're going to be talking more with Robby Gray, editor of El Paso Inc., about more of the business development we're seeing going on here. So back after this break with more Talk El Paso over on News Radio 690 KTSM. A lot of ways, again, to chime in. And for John Hertz, not happy about even any expenditure of public funds with that art project here, but we'll talk more about that and more business development again coming up after this break. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned. Even if you're wondering what your travel plans may look like for the near future, as I am, looking at potential travels out of the country, but also looking at that maybe being a tumultuous time to be even considering doing so. The good news is that really, if you're looking for those international flavors, you don't even have to leave home to be able to get them here in El Paso anymore, because Enhanced Flavors is your local source of over 40 quality flavored olive oils, extra virgin olive oils, and balsamic vinegar. Of course, the olive oils imported from across the world, Tunisia, Italy, Greece, and Spain, and all of their balsamic vinegars, of course, imported straight from the Modena province of Italy, as it's required to call it as such. Love using the flavors in some of my own cooking. You can try them for yourselves, but really help spice up your life. You can find them both online at enhancedflavors.com. That's enhancedflavors with a D.com. Or you can also find them out in the community. They particularly are going to the Upper Valley Farmers Market out there that happens Sundays in the Hobby Lobby parking lot at the crossroads near Donovan and Mesa. But you can also try their samples there as well. Some of the ones I really like is their fig and pistachio blend balsamic vinegar. Can really, it goes well on just about anything. I haven't found anything I haven't liked it on yet, including ice cream. It works, believe it or not. Right flavors anyway. So try them out for yourselves. And again, find them online at enhancedflavors.com. That's enhanced with a D, flavors.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking El Paso traffic, that exit ramp is still blocked due to a large semi-tractor trailer that's blocking it at I-10 eastbound at Yarborough Drive. Joe Battle Boulevard northbound at Vista del Sol, an earlier vehicle fire still blocking the right lane. Mesa Street north of Sunland Park at Balboa, an accident reported there. And medical crew and police responding to an accident, Sunland Park and Donovan Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Market Disruptors Live May 6th through May 8th in Dallas, Texas. In these uncertain times, it's never been more important to grow your wealth and protect your freedom. Learn how to do that and more with today's top experts at Market Disruptors Live, May 6th through the 8th in Dallas, Texas. Save your spot now at marketdisruptorslive.com.
Do you promise to love, honor, and cherish forsaking all others?
I do.
I do.
And now, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you roommates. Go forth.
That's not the vow you took. But if struggles with CPAP have you and your spouse sleeping in separate rooms, it might be time to look into Inspire. Inspire works inside the body with just the click of a remote. That's right, just a button. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation.
Talk to your doctor to see if Inspire is right for you. Review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with a new way to enjoy our beautiful planet. Energy consumption is a primary contributor to a changing climate, producing around 27% of greenhouse gases in the United States. Save money and energy at home by turning off your computer completely before you go to bed. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
As the country bounces back from COVID and mask mandates are lifted, your business needs a lift too. Promote your company right here, right now. Radio ads connect with 93% of Americans every week. That's more than Google, more than Facebook, more than TV. In fact, radio reaches 20% more millennials than TV. Want more of the people you want to talk to all in one place? Visit iHeartAdvertising.com and get AM and FM working for you. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/trial. That's ZipRecruiter.com/trial.
There won't be much substance on your news feed until you add us. Just like us or click on the link at KTSMradio.com. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show. Of course, we have the social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on most of those here. And more comments coming in along with that. Amira Coleman saying that the price tag for the project, I think referring to that public arts one, $3 million seems an excessive price tag. Why would the artist not donate or request a nominal price? Even if donations are from the private sector, the money could go to more essential projects. I mean, the scope is pretty large. I will say that. Why is there not a more nominal price here? Again, it's supposed to be on the order of magnitude of the Equis in Mexico. So in terms of justification for the price, I think that's probably what they're going to be talking about here, because that is the artist of that project. So a similar scale is being discussed here. As to the actual way it's going to be administered and handled and paid for, that's a reasonable point to get into, as we certainly will here. But again, you can comment over on the social media throughout the program here, but we are joined here in studio now by Robby Gray, editor of El Paso Inc. Thank you very much for joining us, as we do most first Tuesdays of the month.
It's good to be here.
Absolutely. So we got a few stories coming in, and one that I wanted to kind of refocus on. We talked a bit about it yesterday, but you had an interesting perspective on it about that Democratic state convention coming to El Paso in the coming years.
Yeah, the Texas Democratic Convention is slated to come here in 2024. I think that's the first time in a couple decades.
Mm-hmm.
Also, more immediately, next week, the Ballet Alliance is going to be here in El Paso for their convention. That's 800 people over 4 days, and they will be here again in 2023. So here's the bigger picture. There's been this long time effort to revitalize downtown El Paso. It was kind of put on pause a bit, I guess you could say, like many downtowns with the pandemic. But things are really coming back alive very quickly here.
I mean, yeah, we've got that, major convention scheduled for the coming years, but even just smaller things. I mean, there have been more performances happening. I actually went downtown the other day, and I didn't realize that there were now multiple scooter companies operating down there. I mean, that's a completely kind of off the wall example, but it's just kind of emblematic of the larger truth that there is more activity going on.
Yeah, so sort of on a personal note, my wife and I did a staycation in downtown. This is the first time we've ever done that. We stayed in a hotel over the weekend, and I was genuinely surprised. There were scooters all over the place. There was people all over San Jacinto Plaza. We had to wait in line to check into the hotel. Hotels were full. I tried to make reservations at a restaurant 2 days in advance and they were already booked.
Wow.
And that doesn't happen in El Paso. So there's just a lot of activity in downtown. The big caveat, of course, is that once you get outside the main core, the convention center, San Jacinto Plaza, the newly renovated hotels, it does die down significantly. But that core of downtown is really coming back.
Which is, I mean, has been quite a bit of focus here, both for private efforts, private businesses and such, but also, from city council and other public entities wanting that to happen here. So it's interesting that your perspective on it there and seeing more about that. I haven't tried the whole staycation thing. I mean, I usually don't get weekends off to begin with, so I'm not doing a lot of that, but as that's been called for by some, even by listeners to this program, of the idea of supporting downtown and getting into it. So interesting, your perspective here. But so I've also seen that it's kind of a larger talk about redevelopment going on and success of it, economic development in the area. I mean, also, we came out this week that the DeSoto Hotel, or early last week, that the DeSoto Hotel is going to continue to be renovated. So that is at least in juxtaposition between that, recent-ish major convention that happened downtown with the bowling championships that happened. And some of the people I talked with back then saying, like, sure, we got our hotel down here, but a lot of people were having to stay outside of downtown to then come in. And so the fact, just availability of, and then to do anything outside of the bowling, they had to then leave downtown and go elsewhere in town. And that's, again, kind of in the microcosm example of the DeSoto. It wouldn't have been unreasonable to expect that, like 5 years ago, a building that was not quite gutted by fire would just be demolished and that be done with it, and good luck, another parking lot kind of thing. So the fact that anyone else is actively seeing value and benefit and potential from this is, again, it's a very small example in a very larger downtown issue, but I see it as a emblematic of a sea change of just how people are even considering downtown.
Well, and not just investors here in El Paso. So Bitwise Industries made a pretty big announcement. This is a startup based in Fresno, California. And what's sort of different about this one is they're not one of the usual suspects. They're not from here in El Paso. They're based in Fresno, California. They've raised over $100 million in venture capital. And they have these tech hubs in other cities. They target sort of overlooked cities, and they've selected 5 for investment to create these sort of downtown tech hubs. And El Paso and Las Cruces are on that list.
Interesting that you put that there, and also a couple others that you have in the story that are this week: Buffalo, New York, Cheyenne, Wyoming, and Greeley, Colorado. So could also be kind of seen writ more large as looking at underserved cities, but also those that are kind of on the peripheries, but not disconnected from other major areas. Because, I mean, of course, Buffalo, New York, I've got some family up there actually, so decently familiar with that. But I mean, like Colorado and other places like that, these are, again, could be seen, I would argue, on the periphery of other, major centers of, both tech innovation and hiring and things like that. So an interesting way to even just be in that kind of a category here. So, and they actually, with downtown here, they're looking to renovate and be locally headquartered in a downtown building.
Yeah, they told us that, they're looking for temporary headquarters right now, but ultimately their plan is to refurbish a tired downtown building, and they would turn that into a co-work space, sort of a tech academy where you could get education in different tech fields, as well as they also operate a tech consulting business and apprenticeship program.
And then more largely, this one kind of fits into a narrative that I've been following anyway, and seeing connections in between of the idea of investment happening in this area, both by existing companies and local companies, and by outside companies, not even just into, the actual El Paso area, but Juarez as well, with the whole nearshoring phenomenon that we are seeing, gaps and starts and stops of. So with that, this is another company looking to invest here, specifically on the U.S. side of things here. So I guess, what do you see this as kind of part of that larger potential? I mean, maybe I'm out of bounds here, but do you see this as just more interest in the region as things open back up, and as global economics are shifting, at the very least when it comes to supplies here for the U.S. and the way people are considering even structuring it going forward?
Well, look at the tech sector here in El Paso. I mean, it's small but growing, and there's been a long time effort to kind of grow this sort of tech startup ecosystem that hasn't really taken off in any real big way, but there has been progress that way. And so the hope would be that we could start seeing more of these sort of tech jobs here that pay more than the low wages here in El Paso, and can create opportunities for people that want to pursue those fields without having to leave El Paso. So it's just part of this long trend of trying to develop a tech sector here that's been slow but is seeing progress.
All right, and that's actually going to take us through our next break here of the hour. But we're going to come back and talk more again, joined right now by Robby Gray, editor of El Paso Inc., because, of course, as we're talking about, well, people looking at their jobs, the wages that come with it, there's been more, well, people saying that, oh, I'm not going to wait for anyone to bring it for me. They've been doing it on their own. So we'll talk more about that, but we got to take that next break right now. So we're going to be back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments going on amongst other things, but if you wanted to chime in, we got Barbara Carrasco, John Hertz, Maria Coleman, and more tuning in, chiming in. Andrew Zingrant, John Brazelton, and Flaco Jimenez a little bit earlier. If you want to chime in over there, more than welcome to. But otherwise, back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. Recreational marijuana is legal in New Mexico, but having it with you when you go through a Border Patrol checkpoint could get you in trouble. Border Patrol officials reminded the public that being in possession of marijuana while traveling through a Border Patrol checkpoint is illegal under federal law. Recreational cannabis became legal in New Mexico on Friday. El Paso County commissioners are considering the possibility of placing a huge art installation at Ascarate Park. Juarez artist Pedro Francisco Rodriguez Delgado, along with the El Paso Community Foundation, are both proposing the idea. Rodriguez is the artist who designed the iconic X sculpture in Ciudad Juarez. County Judge Ricardo Samaniego says he wants community input and partnerships as a way to avoid using tax dollars to build the possible project. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Checking El Paso traffic, I-10 eastbound at Yarborough. That exit ramp still blocked for the stalled semi. Joe Battle Boulevard northbound at Vista del Sol. A vehicle fire blocking the right lane. On Mesa Street, just north of Sunland Park, a crash at Balboa. That's slowing traffic. Northbound Mesa Street's got about a 10-minute delay. Stanton and Missouri Avenue downtown, and that's the site of an injury accident. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Severe Weather Center. This is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We continue to deal with warm and windy weather, and it looks like those winds will not cooperate much overnight either. Now, they will eventually decrease after midnight, but we are expecting more winds again for your Wednesday. Thursday looks to be a little better with the winds, but we're also looking at a cold front coming in on Wednesday night that will cool us down for Thursday. That cool down won't last long. We're back in the 80s over the weekend.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
There's a man in Georgia who owns a burrito shop. When his store was broken into late one night, he posted his personal number and a job offer online for the would-be thief. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
He's one of America's most controversial billionaires, George Soros. All across America, Soros is funding far-left district attorneys for office. And once elected, these district attorneys oppose bail. They want early release for criminals. And in some cases, they won't even prosecute felony offenders. It's no wonder crime is spiking in major cities, and our police are under fire. Now, Rob Schmidt looks at the shocking situation on Newsmax. Tune into Newsmax and watch Rob Schmidt tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. And find out the real truth about George Soros and the dangerous district attorneys endangering our cities. You can find Newsmax on every major cable system. If your cable operator doesn't carry Newsmax, call them. Let them know you want it. Or watch Newsmax free on your smart TV. Or start streaming on Pluto, Zumo, Roku, and more. Millions are switching to Newsmax for news they can trust. Switch today and watch Rob Schmidt tonight.
Comfort Keepers of Las Cruces is now hiring in-home caregivers. If you're kind and compassionate, then Comfort Keepers of Las Cruces may have a fun and flexible new career for you. Call 575-521-4400 today. Comfort Keepers of Las Cruces, elevating the human spirit.
There's a man in Georgia who owns a burrito shop. When his store was broken into late one night, he posted his personal number and a job offer online for the would-be thief. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends. For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of those pages are good ways to get at us during the show, because we'll open up the phone lines a little bit later here, probably end of this segment. But in the meantime, a lot of comments coming in there. John Brausleton, Barbara Carrasco, John Hertz, Maria Coleman, Andrew Zignorant, and more. Flaco Jimenez a little bit earlier. John Brausleton getting a comment here. But getting back to our guests here right now, we do have Robby Gray, editor of El Paso Inc. here with us in the studio. Thanks for sticking around with us.
Good to be here.
Absolutely. Talking about a lot of the stories, the reporting that you all are doing on some of the local currents, and on one of those, the BitHub or Bitwise innovation hub that they're wanting to bring here, tech hubs in El Paso and Las Cruces here, noting some of the other cities that are being targeted along with this, kind of on the periphery of other major areas, which is an interesting company to be in here. We had one of the commenters, John Brausleton, noting that when the wind blows in from the south, Greeley, Colorado smells like a stockyards. And well, I'm just saying here in our studio here, we're within, throwing distance is the word I'm going to choose to use from some of the water processing plants. And with that wind today, we're getting more than a couple of whiffs of something. You're glad to be inside in a building and a room that doesn't have a lot of windows. I'm just going to say for right now here, but interesting personal experience you seem to have had with that. But again, talking about this kind of in general in relation to the investment, the outside and inside and redevelopment kind of going on throughout this region, which I find interesting. But of course, there are many sides to this kind of a topic, and something that you all have been doing, Robby, is also focusing on the kind of local impacts of what is otherwise being called the Great Resignation, though it's a little bit more complex than that locally. It's not people just dropping out of the labor force, but basically saying that, as you were talking before the break about, more companies maybe coming in, maybe offering better job offerings than, the call centers, $10 an hour kind of thing that has been not quite the norm, but certainly quite the trend for a long time. And so they're saying, well, I'm not going to wait for anyone else to do it. I'm just going to do it myself.
Right. So more workers are quitting to become their own bosses. It's a national trend that we found is true in El Paso.
Mm-hmm.
So real quick here, let me give you a couple numbers. There was a nearly 12% increase in new business applications in El Paso between 2019 and 2020, a trend that continued through 2021. And if you look at the El Paso Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, they've seen a very similar trend. They say they've seen a 27% jump in the number of new businesses they've seen coming to sort of seek support, seek help, that sort of thing.
Okay, so both from the local agencies and official numbers that come out of this, seeing a lot of interest here. So most of these, I'm assuming, would be starting out kind of as small businesses, but I mean, it's on the rolls nevertheless here. And I mean, the numbers, some of the other ones here, looking at 2019 versus 2020, an actual increase in new business applications.
In 2019, there were 5,751 new business applications in El Paso. In 2020, there were 6,436. So a significant increase as sort of the pandemic has been ongoing and people have been rethinking what they want to do.
So in looking at some of these numbers and the trends here, I mean, we've seen a lot of people that, particularly the service sector and, hospitality sectors, where workers and businesses hit particularly hard, both with the, near vertical line of the increase in unemployment that happened, about this time 2 years ago, if you want to really track it a little bit before, actually, so more than 2 years ago at this point. So a lot of people that may have been in a job and not necessarily where they want to, but you got to keep working, right, being forced into a situation they didn't really anticipate and through no fault of their own were, reaping the reward for. It seems like people are then reevaluating and deciding to maybe go forth. Maybe I'm too optimistic in this kind of an assertion, but trying to be a little bit more, comprehensive in their planning for the future. But you all give some advice about how to consider this, right?
Right. I mean, I think the trend helps explain sort of the ongoing shakeup in the world of work, and it's really part of the explanation behind some of the labor shortages. I mean, a piece of it. I mean, the pandemic's given people time to think about what they want to do with the rest of their lives and careers, and some are deciding to strike out. But as we talk to some of the experts here that work with entrepreneurs and people wanting to strike out and start their businesses, they do have some basic advice. First of all, get some help. And there are services here locally that can help you with starting a business. And don't rush into it. It takes a while to start a business. It takes careful planning. make sure you have a realistic assessment of how much capital it's going to take to get it off the ground.
Yeah, because I mean, there's so many adages out there about best laid plans and all, and I kind of go battlefield on this one that no plan survives contact with the enemy, or as was put a little bit more accurately, no plan survives contact with the battlefield. Because you may have you get everything on paper, and then you start hitting reality, and that's when things start. Delays happen, mistakes happen, things have to be corrected, or assumptions that were found to be wrong have to be dealt with. And so, yeah, going into this with open eyes, as much as it may be very exciting to go on and start your own business, working for yourself, all of that kind of things, reality and having some backup plans and contingencies is also very, very important.
Right, and there's the Small Business Development Center at EPCC. There's the Chambers of Commerce, all sorts of support for putting together a business plan and all that's involved with that.
So yeah, a lot of local support that can be found from this. Again, we mentioned some of the Chambers of Commerce here, the Small Business Development Center that you just mentioned here. So if anyone's considering that, just again, do it in a concerted, concentrated, and thought out manner, because if you're just going to try to wing it, well, I think you're going to be feeling like some of those birds in our high winds here right now here. But of course, this isn't the only bit of business going on here, kind of related both to the business development and investment we're talking about. We mentioned it a little bit, but the reporting that you all have done recently on more investments into El Paso businesses, candy maker of the region investing, and also, of course, the redevelopment of the Crest building in downtown. One of the kind of underappreciated gems in my mind, but that has been one of the ones that has kind of languished in, well, operational obscurity for decades now. Some plans being floated on both of these ends that could, again, make a little bit more robust market and availability for our region.
So it's one of the more visible buildings in downtown. I mean, it's got this fantastic Art Deco front right on San Jacinto Plaza. I think most people who've been downtown would recognize it. Historic, goes back a long time. But yeah, so a company led by businessman Paul Foster, he revealed some of his plans for it. And well, it's just sort of a plan or a proposal. It could include a tunnel that would even go underneath the street in San Jacinto Plaza and connect the Plaza Hotel with the Crest Hotel. So they could put a spa and some, hotel amenities in there, along with the retail and other things.
So yeah, that's one of the more interesting little wrinkles and possibilities of that project here. There's been, just going back historically, some attempts or considerations of tunnels and connecting. I think that back in the turn of the previous century, there was a specific law involving branches of banks being too close to each other that led to at least a proposal, maybe a follow through of a tunnel in downtown El Paso to connect two buildings to make it consider as one building. So it's not out of place here. But again, the Crest building, that if people are not sure about when we're talking about, you stand in San Jacinto Plaza and look south, it's at the corner of Mills and Oregon Street there. Again, very noticeable. It's got that big, Art Deco sign, Crest, Kress on it. So it's noticeable. And again, it's one of the ones that I've been hoping to see we'd see more happen with, even as there has been some development happening around there. I mean, we've got like some of the street level businesses that are right along that corridor that have also been seeing their own development and opening here, but that has been kind of a major, without anything happening to it, anchor for that even just particular block for a while.
Yeah, and that building has been empty for a very long time. I mean, it was built in 1937 and it housed a 5 and 10 cent store until it closed in the 1970s, and it's just been in terrible condition. And I think because of that, the county approved a package of tax breaks for that project, rebates 90% of the property taxes for 10 years. And I believe the owners have also said that they're going to apply to put the building on the National Register of Historic Places. And I would expect they'd also be looking for historic tax credits as well to support that project.
I mean, and that's something that some aspects of public partnerships and really just even funding and designation efforts, like you mentioned, there have been useful in a lot of ways. Been available for some years now, but it's really been the second half of this last decade here that we've really seen people, because with these designations, there can come different grants for more redevelopment. The idea of keeping the building there, but then getting essentially over the hump of the extra cost that it takes to do restoration as opposed to new build, that had been a large issue for downtown. So to see this continue here, and as we have mentioned, with the DeSoto Hotel moving forward as a redevelopment and not just a demolition, again, makes me maybe unrealistically optimistic, but I can't help but feel it, because I would love to see downtown operating in a way where people are able to go live, work, and do the things they want to there. And I think that that's kind of a national demand. We're seeing that El Paso may have more or less lucked into by not having lost its downtown corridor in the interim.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the old buildings are still there. And now that pandemic has eased up some, at least for now, it's getting busy again. Some people are returning to the workplace. Some are doing sort of a remote sort of and in the workplace sort of thing. But it was definitely busy when I was down there. I mean, people on scooters, there's live music. Things are definitely going on there.
A question being asked actually about from, I think, one of the previous times we were here, Flaco Jimenez asking, is anything happening with the Caples building? The last we heard about that, essentially that sale had failed by a pretty small margin. It ended up being. So I think it's kind of on, last I heard, it was essentially on hold with my assumption, strong possibility of it coming back up after some reevaluation, maybe looking at other clients, maybe repricing, that kind of a thing.
That's a really troubled building.
Yeah.
It's that's going to be a huge project. And yes, it was put out for an auction to be sold. It did not. They did not make the minimum bid on that. And it's a very prominent building in downtown. I mean, you come down Mesa, you come into downtown, that's like one of the first things you see right there.
You miss your turn, you'd run into it.
Yeah, exactly. You would. But it's in terrible shape, and it's going to take millions and millions of dollars worth of investment. So as far as I understand, I believe it remains on the market. But it has not been sold, and it failed to sell at the auction.
So if you got a few dozen million or probably less lying around here and you want to get a building, you could probably make your own deal. But again, that auction specifically did not go through. The reserve price was not met. So TBD, watch this space kind of situation at the moment. That I'm sure as more action comes up, we'll definitely talk about it here and y'all will be reporting on.
We will be. We're keeping a close eye on that one.
Absolutely. Again, guest right now has been Robby Gray, editor of El Paso Inc. And you want to find anything more about them, their reporting, or even subscribe, elpasoinc.com. So, Robby, thanks very much for stopping by and talking with us about some of the major stories going on recently and stuff that you'll be reporting on.
Thanks. It's great to be here again.
Absolutely. Here, as we do most first Tuesdays of the month, put schedule pending here, as we'll do it again more. But we got to take that next break right now. So coming out of the break, we'll get to more of these comments and questions and even open up those calls in the line. We'll go ahead and open up that phone line, 915-544-5876, 915-544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Copia Street, an injury accident is slowing traffic. Expect delays there. I-10 eastbound at Yarborough, that exit is still blocked. The Yarborough exit on I-10 eastbound blocked due to a semi-tractor trailer rig. I-10 westbound at Americas Avenue, another stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. And Mesa Street north of Sunland Park, an accident at Balboa is slowing traffic with 10-minute delays on Mesa Street northbound. Kerry Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Our American Stories podcast.
There's a man in Australia who came to America only to fall in love with a great American culinary experience, buffalo wings. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Anyone can get long COVID, even Rob, age 22.
I got COVID in September of 2020, and a few weeks later, I started to have long-term problems. I used to run 5 to 6 miles a day. Now, when I walk up a flight of stairs, I'm gasping for air. It feels like my brain is clouded and I can't think straight.
Getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is the best way to prevent long COVID. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
I'm Katherine Townsend, host of the true crime podcast Hell and Gone. In October 2015, 18-year-old Ebby Stepwick vanished without a trace.
And then the fact that they found her phone in her car, her wallet, her keys in her car, that right there tells me someone planned this.
I'm back in Arkansas, investigating what really happened to her. iHeartRadio is #1 for podcasts, and it's easy to see why. Listen to Hell and Gone on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is the leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
There's a man in Australia who came to America only to fall in love with a great American culinary experience, buffalo wings. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Because you never hear this.
Hey, hon, I'm late. Chris, I am so pleased you missed the beginning of our meeting.
Thanks for making me wait, Dad. I talked to a lot of strangers.
Check on your commute. Stay informed. Traffic and weather all day. Or you might never hear the end of it.
Well, you were late to our anniversary dinner that one time.
Yes, how could I forget?
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to interact with the show. We do have those phone lines open right now. That number to call, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM, if you want to add in on your 2 cents on the subject we're discussing today or some of the other things affecting us here in the borderland. Again, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming again. Thanks to our guests from previous segments here, Robby Gray, editor of El Pasoing, about some of their both recent stories and recent reporting and what's probably going to be going on into the future here. A lot of comments coming in on some of these subjects here. Flaco Jimenez, Maria Kalman, Barbara Carrasco, Rudy Rivera, John Brazelton, John Hertz, and more. Both on, this subject and the public art project that I was pretty sure people were going to want to sound off on here. Maria Coleman saying that small businesses in El Paso is a positive step in the right direction. The big box stores seem to dominate locally. No argument there. There is a wealth of talent here that remains untapped. I would like to see more promotion of the local unique artists in our region. From that perspective, I want to say probably the best way that's, maybe not totally promotion like you're talking about, but just to go and find out and experience it for yourself, really, I think has to be these farmers market and these arts and farmers markets that are really going pretty strong around town. I mean, some of the people that we talk about, even just as, sponsors of the show, either got their start in those or are still doing that as a primary business for them. So they're really, I think, a kind of in the public, or at least if you don't go to them and you don't know about them, you're really missing out, I guess, is what I'm getting to here, because it's quite bustling. There's a lot of demand for it. It's open air, so it's still, even if you got compunctions, a good place to go to. But I also, the amount of businesses being launched in there and getting even further along here it's impressive. I just got to call it that, because so much is happening there, and it really just showcases both we're talking about, if you really want to get a small start and really just bootstrap it up, that's a good place to do it from here. Even as, if I sound a little phlegmy today, it's because currently the wind and the allergies are a little bit kicking my butt today. So I might not go out to this current one, but like some of our partners are going to be out there. So hopefully all this pollen, flies away and washes away before then. I came outside yesterday. My front porch was just a carpet of yellow. Like the tile was a little bit lighter than it usually is, and the grout in between it, very, very much yellow here. But also another major topic, of course, drawing interest here. Besides, Barbara Carrasco and others saying, mom and pop businesses appreciate businesses, buy local, and businesses are small businesses being the backbone of the area here. Also, that public art project, in light of our enormous debt, Barbara Carrasco saying, I oppose using taxpayer dollars for artworks at this time here. And, some others going even further than that. Rudy Rivera, saying, why don't these weasel politicians look for ways to lower property taxes and forget about art projects, quote unquote, here. So, there's some discussion and other situations to be described there here. John Hertz a little bit earlier saying, we need to get past the idea that Juarez is part of El Paso. It's not. Juarez is a third world country. They have nothing to offer. They are a drain on our resources here. Interesting perspective here. I guess the way I look at it is that if Juarez just, press a button, poof, disappeared, El Paso would essentially, we would see, even at the height of the pandemic with the layoffs we saw, we would see amount of businesses and work just disappear on an order of magnitude that probably wouldn't be seen even since or even before the Great Depression here. Because again, estimates are that the trade and transit, back and forth that happens between El Paso and Juarez, responsible for up to, around a quarter of jobs here. So I'm not saying that there aren't issues with that relationship. And again, you can welcome to have your opinion on that art project, but the idea of the communities and the cross-national and, cross-border trade and connections being important is not a great debatable point. in my mind here. But tell you what, we got a call on the line here right now. If you want to call in again, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We'll get in a quick one here right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Hey, this is Raul. Boy, that what you just said about the percentage of the local economy that's tied to virus is right on. Goes to show how clueless some of your listeners are. On Putin's war on Ukraine, Trump recently said that if he was president, Putin wouldn't have invaded Ukraine. Who knows? Some foreign policy experts say that Trump enabled Putin with his denigration of NATO. In any case, Trump claimed to know more than the generals, and he said that his best foreign policy advisor was himself. And he bragged about having a good relationship with Putin, and he being a billionaire, he can afford to fly to Russia. So I asked your Trumper listeners and callers, why doesn't Trump fly to Russia to convince his genius pal Putin to end his war in Ukraine, return his troops to Russia, and pay reparations to Ukraine for the destruction of their country? Doing this would win Trump a Nobel Peace Prize along with his criminal indictments. On something else, that former president, the one-term, twice impeached former commander in chaos and coup, Donald Trump, admitted on a video footage in front of a panel of historians that he did not win the 2020 presidential election. This is the only concession that Trump has given since he lost. And then, as you know, he proceeded to challenge, delegitimize, and attempt to overthrow the results ever since. And he said, I didn't win the election, said the scandal-ridden Trump on a video footage during an interview with these historians. A Trump who can't keep his big, stupid mouth shut because a media whore made that.
Okay, we're getting a little bit spicy with the language there. I don't think we're technically violating any lessons here, but we're very much outside the bounds of what we talk about during this point in the week here. So, again, very much on record yourself there about your opinion about the former president here. And I don't like being put in a position of having to defend any politician besides what I think they did right in here. But, I mean, seriously, asking essentially at this point a private citizen to go and solve an international crisis here is, sure, it'd be great if it happened, but a little bit unreasonable to say, and this would be the only good thing he did here. Just seriously. Think about how you talk about this among other things here, because, okay, sure, you may be passionate about it, and we have plenty of people that have their own spicy points here, but okay, I'm just going to talk personally for a moment here. Whenever someone ends up saying that, essentially ad hominem attacks beyond the policies and stuff like that, honestly, it feels like the argument has a little been lost, or at least your position on the argument about it is slipping here, because if you have to resort to that kind of a thing as opposed to the facts of the matter and at hand, it just starts, my interest starts waning, among other things. But also, you're not really making points about the situation, more so much about the person and their merits or not. That may be relevant in some circumstances, but we're talking about public policy. It's not the most important one by any stretch of the imagination, or even what we focus on this program in a lot of ways here. So we're going to go ahead and leave that there for today. Anyway, we got to take that next break right now. We do have those phone lines open, so if you're wanting to get on the line, you're more than welcome to. We'll just put you on a brief hold during the break here, but we'll be back with more Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Copia Street, an injury accident is slowing traffic. Expect delays there. I-10 eastbound at Yarborough, that exit is still blocked. The Yarborough exit on I-10 eastbound blocked due to a semi-tractor trailer rig. I-10 westbound at Americas Avenue, another stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. And Mesa Street north of Sunland Park, an accident at Balboa is slowing traffic with 10-minute delays on Mesa Street northbound. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
We're planning a trip to Spain later this year.
But our Spanish is
pretty bad. So we're using Babbel.
Babbel's conversation-based method teaches you real-life words and phrases. And with Babbel's interactive bite-sized lessons, you'll remember what you learned.
There's no easier way to learn another language.
Ahora hablamos español.
He just said now we speak Spanish.
Babbel, language for life. Now try Babbel for free. Just go to Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Why should you volunteer with Meals on Wheels?
I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of two people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. The White House is still not seeking regime change in Russia.
Our policy is no, we are not calling for regime change, and that has not been our policy and continues not to be our policy.
So said Press Secretary Jen Psaki during her daily briefing. She again called Russian President Putin a war criminal. Psaki cited the horrific images of civilian deaths in Ukraine. The governor of Oklahoma is expected to sign a near-total abortion ban. Heading to his desk, the Oklahoma State House today passed the measure that only allows an exception if the life of the woman is in danger and calls for criminal penalties against any doctor who performs an abortion. The bill is a carryover from last session when it was passed by the state Senate and a House committee. Sacramento police are announcing a third arrest after Sunday's mass shooting. 31-year-old Davion Dawson was arrested Monday. His involvement in the shooting, if any, is not yet known. In the aftermath, there is a new focus on citizens suing over illegal guns. Dina Kodiak has more.
One of the suspects arrested so far as connected to the shooting is being charged with possession of a machine gun, and he was prohibited from even possessing any firearm. Now, Democratic Senator Robert Hertzberg is expected to advance a bill allowing private citizens to sue anyone who distributes illegal assault weapons, parts that can be used to build them, guns with missing serial numbers, or 50 caliber rifles, each gun with a penalty of $10,000 in civil damages and attorney's fees. The legislation is modeled after a Texas law that allows citizens to enforce the state's ban on abortions, which the Supreme Court recently upheld. I'm Dina Kodiak.
The Senate Majority Leader is warning Republicans not to hold up billions in COVID relief funds over Title 42. That's the public health rule that allows illegal immigrants to be immediately turned back at the border that President Biden is set to end next month. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Another House Republican who voted to impeach ex-President Trump is not seeking re-election. Michigan moderate Fred Upton has served 18 years in the House. Speaking on the House floor, Upton said, "Even the best stories has a last chapter. This is it for me." 3 other House Republicans who voted to impeach Trump are also not seeking re-election. They are Ohio's Anthony Gonzalez, New York's John Katko, and Adam Kinzinger of Illinois. Trump put out a statement on the 10 House Republicans who voted to impeach him after last year's attack on the Capitol. The former president said 4 down and 6 to go. He added, others losing badly. Who's next? The truckers' convoy is making its way to California. Jordan Christmas has the details.
Hundreds of truckers in the People's Convoy are making their way to California to protest what they see as government overreach by Governor Newsom and other lawmakers. Brian Brazzi is a co-organizer of the convoy and said that their first stop will be in LA on April 10th.
So we made the decision that we should convoy back, get out there to LA for the Defeat the Mandates rally, and then, of course, go occupy Sacramento to take a stand against these bills coming.
Brazzi said that the convoy has received many requests to come out to the Golden State.
California residents have also requested that aren't in the convoy but are in the state, have requested that we come there and that we help them make a statement. We're all in this together. United we stand, divided we fall. And the People's Convoy is going to represent this entire nation. We'll come to your state if we have to.
The convoy opposes a group of bills that are being considered by the state. They believe the bills are universally dangerous.
SpaceX CEO Elon Musk is now the world's richest person. Musk tops Forbes' latest billionaires list, replacing Amazon founder Jeff Bezos as the new number 1. According to Forbes, Musk has a net worth of $219 billion, and that doesn't include his new equity stake in Twitter. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by the maker of NexGard Afoxolaner.
NexGard Afoxolaner is monthly flea and tick protection that's #1 vet recommended and #1 dog preferred. Use with caution in dogs with a history of seizures or neurologic disorders. Ask your vet or visit nextguardfordogs.com to learn more.
There's something for everyone on Discovery Plus. The streaming home of ghostly freakouts, muscle car spinouts, and 90-day makeouts.
I'm really in love with her.
Start your free trial today for exclusive originals and a huge collection of favorites.
Whoa!
Then dive into nature docs, geek out with the family, and get your grub on. I can eat this every day. The streaming home of true crime, paranormal, food, home, nature, romance, plus so much more. Discovery Plus. Start your free trial. Terms apply.
Hi, guys. It's me, Brian Baumgartner, and maybe you've heard my podcast, The Office Deep Dive. Well, now I'm expanding it into even more of your favorite shows in my new podcast, Off the Beat.
Hey, everybody. I'm Rob Riggle.
Hi, I'm Allison Hannigan.
My name is Jamie Lynn Sigler, Meadow Soprano.
Eric Stone Street. I played Cameron Tucker.
Listen to Off the Beat on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Titans go!
When the Teen Titans go to the movies, they know the best way to travel is safely.
Hollywood, here we come!
And you know it's super. To keep your child safe, be sure to use the right car seat for their age and size.
Exactly.
We're finally on the big screen.
Have a seat, my dude. For more information on finding the right seat, visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Gotcha. That's a wise move.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
180 over 111, and I had a stroke. I couldn't speak or walk.
This is high blood pressure. Get back on your plan. Go to loweryourhbp.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel, over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch.tv is the website there. Andrew J. Polk. In most of those places, both of those names, Talk El Paso, Andrew J. Polk, be able to find us online, tune in, participate in the show, because, again, no one else is going to talk about the things that affect us here in the borderland the way we are. So I appreciate the comments, even if, the Skeptic Squad forms every day, and the Thunderdome of comments is often a part of that here. We got John Browston, Maria Coleman, Barbara Carrasco, Flaco Jimenez, and more tuning in, chiming in, Rudy Rivera, and John Hertz, Andrew Zignorant a little bit earlier. Anyway, if you want to chime in over there, more than welcome to. But we do have that phone line open, of course, right now. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A couple of comments coming in here. Again, some discussion about our last caller there, which, well, I think other people have more to say about that than I will. But among other things, we have a comment about the farmers market saying there are farmers markets here and a downtown market, but private run markets charge per date. Old Messiah has an artisan market that has a yearly municipal fee. This helps promote artists reasonably and increases tourism. This is an outdoor venue with restaurants and an area to relax. And John Brazelton commenting on the, current situation. And you can relax during breaks with recreational marijuana. Again, I think there are some issues. Don't think you can just spark up anywhere. To my understanding, there are some things about public consumption. I think it's basically going to be on the same kind of avenue of alcohol laws currently are, but just be relaxed about it and chill out. And I wonder if restaurants in New Mexico are going to be doing better here in short order, or very least maybe corner stores, the places that sell the chips, that kind of thing here. We'll see. I hope someone's keeping track of that as well. Anyway, let's get to those phone lines again. The number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM, if you're wanting to add your 2 cents this way. Right now, we do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Reference this art project that the county commissioners are considering in Ascarate Park.
Yes.
Yes. They said that the money, they're going to try to raise the money from outside sources. Am I correct?
That's the assumption, yes, or at least in large part. They're looking at some public outreach efforts, and of course, it's going to be on otherwise public land, to my understanding. So I doubt this can be at all 100% non-public funded here. Very least, you can argue that it's taking up public meeting time and that there's a cost associated with that. But yes, that is the stated intention of this project, is to be otherwise not public funded.
Yes, well, I'm just wondering, doesn't it also take taxpayer resources to maintain that project, at least keep it clean and and upkeep?
I would imagine so. I don't think it's particularly part of the scope of what they're talking about. Again, if you go over to a CBS4Local.com, they've got the link actually to the discussion and the full presentation that happened at County Commissioner's Court along with this here. But it wouldn't be unreasonable to expect that. I fully agree with you.
Yes, well, to me, it's a waste of time, and resources could be, whether public or private, could be spent on other areas. I mean, we're just getting out of a pandemic, and and the money could be raised for some other needy matters.
I mean, it's true. I guess so. I have had mixed emotions about most public art projects in El Paso for a while now, and this one probably the most literal, sizable one that would be a part of this here. But the way, I mean, I used to be like, okay, why are we bothering with this? But then it kind of hit me. Other places I visit, what are some of the biggest attractions for other places? End up being, major art installations. So it's the kind of thing that writ large big cities do. Now, specifics and the nature of it, and honestly, there's a lot of modern art that ends up just being a scam in my mind here. This one, again, if you look at the pictures of it, the concept is interesting, even if I'm not sure I'm qualified to get it. I guess it's a thing big cities do, but if this is worth it, is certainly up for debate.
Right. Yes, and I do need to respond to that Raul character. I don't think Trump wants to get involved in this matter. I mean, think about it. Having to expend Secret Service time, the money it would cost the Secret Service or taxpayers for them to travel with him. And then I don't think Trump wants to be at risk of being charged under the Logan Act, even though people haven't been prosecuted under it, but these Democrats will find a way to use it against him.
Not to mention even the difficulty of getting to Russia right now. I mean, the whole lack of planes being allowed back and forth comes to mind as a part of this here. But again, as much as that would be a great thing, as the proposal was made to solve this conflict, and it would be a great thing and probably lead to a Nobel Prize, making that as a basis for liking anything a person has ever done is a little bit unreasonable. I'm just going to say it.
Understand, but just part of educating Raul. But thank you very much.
No, sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call there. Do appreciate it. Again, if you're wanting to call in, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Anyway, let's get to more calls in the line here. Just some topics do get tiresome, but we have the forum that we do, and we take on the issues the way that we do here. We do have Barbara on the west side here with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew, for taking my call. Excuse me. Last week, the Psaki was questioned whether it was ethical for her to be negotiating with MSNBC while she was still working at the White House, and she said that she had abided by all the ethics rules and she had done nothing wrong. Well, in the first 14 months, President Biden has issued 50 secret waivers or ethic waivers, and apparently she's not one of the 50 in there. At the rate that Biden is going, he's 3 times more than the amount that President Trump issued. In 32 months, President Trump issued 73, and Biden has issued 50 already. So he's going to be 2 times as much or 3 times as many as President Trump. But in addition to that, President Biden has issued secret waivers, which he refuses to let the public have. So an organization called the Protect Public's Trust has sued the Biden administration to get those secret waivers. And the reason they're so important is because these people are embedded in agencies that are making decisions that affect our lives. So when they do stuff like that, Biden told us they were going to be the most transparent and most ethical administration. It just reinforces the idea of the deep state. At least with me, it does. Why aren't they divulging that information? And in particular, he issued a waiver to a lady called Sharyanya, and I can't even pronounce her last name, but she is senior counselor to Secretary Mayorkas. And her resume is she worked with left-wing organizations and in particular with Amnesty International. And when she was on Amnesty International, she lobbied for open borders. She said that one comment she made was stop associating illegality with immigration. And if you remember in the past, Mayorkas told Border Patrol, just because they're here illegally doesn't mean you deport them. So she and Mayorkas are, both in sync regarding immigration here on our border. And then another thing she indicated is that the Trump administration was choosing to prey on the vulnerable because of the cruelty and chaos. She's describing exactly what the Biden administration is enabling the cartel to do. They are the ones that are preying on the poor and doing it in a cruel manner and taking advantage of them by making them pay them to cross the border. So she's describing everything this administration is doing and perpetuating that cruelty and chaos at the border, not the Biden administration. So that was dangerous. And there are other waivers that President Biden has issued. And as I find topics on it, and if it's particular to that matter, I'll discuss the waiver and the reasons why. But we have far left radicals and they're making policy. And that's why we're where we're at. And the waivers is because they said if they didn't issue the waiver, it would greatly impact the mission of the Biden administration. So they had this on their mind already to open the borders, and she's right there. And she can still tap into Amnesty International. It's not like she can't give them a call. This is amazing that you would still be able to work in the White House and reach out to Amnesty International. And I have no doubt that they have people from Facebook in the White House who are reaching out to Facebook. And that's how we're getting policy and stuff, which is dangerous. It's dangerous and we need to know. So I hope that they get all these secret waivers, ethical waivers disclosed.
I mean, okay, so two thoughts come to my mind here is that, the whole revolving door between government and private industry and even back and forth here in some administrations is concerning to a very large degree. I mean, just professionally thinking, the way I go about things is trying to make sure that I'm frank, forthright, and transparent with how my background and talking about things, and even in selecting topics here. I mean, if there's something that is involved that I'm involved in that affects how I might consider something that might not be publicly knowledgeable. I mean, I try to talk about my experiences, but this is also why I don't make political donations, because that could very much be seen as a skew. I try to avoid this, perceptions of, essentially impropriety, which very much comes up into question when you're dealing with a revolving door between the press secretary or the, spokesperson for the White House and then, a media company. I mean, it just springs straight to mind. And, maybe MSNBC isn't too concerned about that. They've kind of, staked their ground on how they're going to take these issues on. But again, anyone else working there, I would be as worried about myself being involved in that and then being associated with that as anyone else. I mean, seriously, it's more than a little bit concerning here. But second of all, when it comes to then the immigration policies and the impacts you're talking from there, the ones that we're definitely going to be feeling here in our area if it continues on this way. So I want to go back to the actual Obama administration here for a minute, because, of course, there was the whole DACA and DAPA and similar programs that were focused on then the idea of deferred, not as we are ignoring what's going on here, but prioritization. And I mean, that made a certain level of sense at the time, even if it was you're going to ignore some technical crimes in favor of greater ones. Okay, sure, making a bit of sense. And it may make a level of sense now when we're talking about resources being stripped very thin. But then if we're going on even a step further beyond that and saying, this don't even matter anymore, that's going to be too far for me. Absolutely.
Yes. And yesterday I indicated that the Biden administration had floated a trial balloon about tapping into the VA to help on our borders. Well, Hillary Vaughn at Fox did state that the Customs Border Patrol, a source told her that they were going to tap the VA and they are going to put VA medical personnel on the border to do the vaccines, which limits again our poor veterans who have a wait line just to be seen. So this is just shameful that they're now impacting the Veterans Administration and our veterans. So I just wanted to verify to your listening audience that in fact that she stayed in Customs Border Patrol said that is going to happen.
I mean, absolutely here. And we actually have a comment about a little part of this here, talking about the Biden administration and the current policies here. Raul saying, but that's okay. Not by balancing your show with the viewpoint from the other side. I want to make it very clear about how we talk about things on this program here, that it's one thing to talk about the policies and impacts we are seeing from a current administration and otherwise just basically resorting to disparaging the character of a previous administration that no longer has policy control here. We talked about the Trump administration a lot while the Trump administration was in power here, but just calling in to say how much you don't like a previous elected official, it's slightly different scope, and I kind of, it's important to me that you understand the difference there in any case. But thank you very much for the point and call, Barbara. Do appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, we are due for that next break right now, so we'll come back from this break, and we'll get to more calls in the line here and more of the comments because, well, that's what we do at this point in the show. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Copia Street. An injury accident is slowing traffic. I-10 westbound at Artcraft. A stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. I-10 eastbound at Yarborough. That Yarborough exit ramp still blocked. And Montwood Drive eastbound after Yarborough. Watch for an injury accident there with medical crew on the scene. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the maker of NexGuard Afoxolaner.
NexGuard Afoxolaner is monthly flea and tick protection that's #1 vet recommended and #1 dog preferred. Use with caution in dogs with a history of seizures or neurologic disorders. Ask your vet or visit nextguardfordogs.com to learn more.
The True Crime Podcast, What Happened to Sandy Beale, investigates the alarming death of a young woman who dreamed of a career in law enforcement. Journalist Melissa Jeltsin untangles the mystery at the heart of the investigation, revealing a troubling pattern by officials close to the case.
I didn't take any of their crap because I could tell that they were hiding something.
Listen to What Happened to Sandy Beale on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
We're planning a trip to Spain later this year.
But our Spanish is...
It's pretty bad. So we're using Babbel.
Babbel's conversation-based method teaches you real-life words and phrases. And with Babbel's interactive bite-sized lessons, you'll remember what you learned.
There's no easier way to learn another language.
Ahora hablamos español.
He just said, now we speak Spanish.
Babbel, language for life. Now try Babbel for free. Just go to Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com.
To protect his home and family from disaster, Steve used courage, wisdom, and his camera phone.
That should do it.
Way to go, Steve! By simply taking digital pictures of his family's important documents, Steve can always have them stored safely online, no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know. Hey, look.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the program here, as we have those phone lines open, among other things. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of interesting comments coming in over on the social media as well. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch are the ways you can do that. Some commentary on other commentators, which, again, if you want to wade into that debate here, the more than welcome to. But some of the people saying things here, RJ saying, and correctly so in my opinion, comprehensive immigration reform, Obama had all three branches and did nada. Sounds like good gets votes, that's it. Good get votes, that's it. I mean, again, something that has been irking me this whole time, talking about all policies, back and forth, yada, yada. I mean, even from the congresspersons that I might otherwise agree with, them saying that, oh, no, the administration was wrong for doing this. Let me just remind you of what your job description is to pass laws, so maybe do that. Yeah, I'm going to go blue in the face if I talk about that any further. But we'll get back to the phone lines here. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. There again, RJ, Louis Pinato, Barbara Carrasco, Raul Amaya, and more tuning in, chiming in, John Brazelton, Marlon Espinosa, among others here, Flaco Jimenez a little bit earlier. Again, it's one of the better ways throughout the show, and the conversations take on their own tenor and tone in a lot of these here. But, well, it gets back to those phone lines here. We do have Gabrielle on the east side here right now. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon there. What's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to comment. I think the fellow's name is Raul, who's suggested that Mr. Trump fix the problems in the Ukraine. And I don't know if you believe this, but the way I look at it is he's actually complimenting Mr. Trump and giving him the ability to maybe fix something that Mr. Biden has started or is part of and is not really fixing. And by giving him that credit, I think that he's giving him a compliment.
That's an interesting way to put about that. I guess in the moment here, I didn't consider that idea. But I guess technically you have a point there. Yeah.
Well, that was just all I wanted to say.
Okay. Appreciate the point there. You have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. I mean, we do take the calls here, and if you got a quick point you even want to make, we have some people that make longer ones, but hey, that's what we got this phone line open for here during the week. Again, just in case there was any confusion, it's Fridays that we take on all the topics from, well, everywhere, and we open up the lines. Otherwise, try to focus on the El Paso impacts, of which, immigration and border security and the policies along with them are obviously pretty directly impacting here, but we will get to a lot more here. Again, the number to call if you want to chime in, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Harry on the east side here with us right now. Harry, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, hello, El Paso. A great day here. I'm an old fuddy-duddy. My comments are always going to be different. Let me congratulate Raul, Barbara, and Andrew. Those are good, intelligent folks. They love the city. They make their comments. Let me tell you a quick bit of history. In 1968, 1969, I was an Army photojournalist in Vietnam. And we did our thing there. I took a lot of pictures, had a few stories printed with stars and stripes. And it was very sad, Andrew, an audience, of going through villages and seeing a lot of dead bodies laying around, men, women, and children, things that you could have blamed us that we caused or not. John F. Kennedy in 1963 had drawn up plans that he was going to withdraw from Vietnam to include the advisors. That's what we had there at that time. We were getting a lot of advisors killed, and he saw this was going to be a senseless war. Now, McNamara, on his deathbed, Robert McNamara, who was Secretary of Defense during this, made a mistake. He said Vietnam was a mistake. We shouldn't have been there. And I'm thinking 58,000 names on that wall in Washington sure would have appreciated hearing that prior to us getting involved. My point is, it's the counter-rile that regardless of what you think of Trump, that, and thank goodness he was in between Obama and Biden, because I saw Obama and Biden today, and it was I couldn't deal with it, couldn't stomach it, with what they've done to this country and what most people don't know. They just don't know. Ill-informed. Now, if the Ukraine situation could have been averted by having Trump in office, wouldn't that have been enough to let Trump go on and be the great president and leader that he is, as opposed to what is going on now? And you walk through and look at Ukraine, all those bodies, all those people, all those innocent people dead. Like I said earlier, Andrew, it's always the other guy. until you become the other guy. Thank you.
No, sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call there. I mean, I was figuring that's the parallels you're going to be making there. I mean, the whole Ukraine situation is a tough one. I found it, just on a personal note, difficult to sometimes focus on the way we talk about this show with the idea of there being a internationally significant conflict currently raging halfway around the world here. I mean, it has been difficult at times. It's weighed heavily on me, as I'm sure it has on many out there in the audience. Again, I almost don't necessarily find it a useful mental exercise to wonder how would the former president have dealt with this here. I mean, I've made my statements along the lines of just the wild card nature of many of his foreign policy decisions probably would have led to hesitation on the part of the Putin administration and cabal, but whether or not they would have actually moved forward with it or not here, I mean, it's hard getting anything straight out of Russia as it is. Pravda runs strong, and there's never going to be any final thing until, well, they end up 6 feet under, to be perfectly honest. That's the only final statement we're going to get out of any of them. Not calling for anything bad to happen with, but just a recognition of the human condition and the way they seem to interact with it in that country on an official capacity of the leadership is lying out every mouth they got. And that's the only certainty that they'll have actually out of it is when, well, that has ended here. But really, I just got to say that saying what could have happened with other administrations, I almost don't find useful, to be perfectly honest, beyond that, because we have the administration in place right now. And that is why, amongst other things, we focus on the policy of all potential elected officials we talk about, because what are they actually going to do when they have the reins of power that they may have once they achieve the office is one of the more paramount things that is frankly not focused on enough. The whole idea of cult of personality and do we like this person is almost immaterial for me. That probably makes me weird in this modern day and age, but I want to know what they're going to do, how they're going to think about it to a broader extent as well, which can be informed by their personality and aspect of it. But once we start getting into, well, this guy's a dub, well, I don't think that there's good, oh, I think they're all crazy. I mean, doing this armchair review of the mental capacity or mental conditions that you see therein is just, it's so navel gazing in my opinion. Focus on what they're doing and what it means for us here. That's literally the lens we do everything on this program, and we'll continue to do so because it's the only reasonable way I have found to be able to really get into these issues without getting into, well, who you like, who I don't, without the popularity contest aspects of it here. And I have been out of middle school for a while now, probably some of our listeners for a lot longer, and getting down to that level of discourse on this is just not productive, and I think keeps us going in the circles that we do. It's how you end up with some of this voting that we've seen of, well, I hate this guy, so I'm going to vote for the other guy, without any necessary knowledge of what the actual policies that the other person you're then avowing support for actually are and what it's going to mean for you. So writ more large, I think it's part of the reason we're in this situation now is looking at issues from that level and not drilling deeper down into what it actually means, which is part of what we're going to continue to do here on this program here, which is not something I mean to pick on you about, Harry, but it has got me on the topic there. So I appreciate the point and the call. You have a good one there. We got to take that next break right now, but coming out of the break, we'll get to more calls in the line, revisit some of our top stories of the day, major discussion points and such here. So if you're wanting to call in, again, the number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. Recreational marijuana is legal in New Mexico, but having it with you when you go through a Border Patrol checkpoint could get you in trouble. Border Patrol officials reminded the public that being in possession of marijuana while traveling through a Border Patrol checkpoint is illegal under federal law. Recreational cannabis became legal in New Mexico on Friday. El Paso County commissioners are considering the possibility of placing a huge art installation at Ascarate Park. Juarez artist Pedro Francisco Rodriguez Delgado, along with the El Paso Community Foundation, are both proposing the idea. Rodriguez is the artist who designed the iconic X sculpture in Ciudad Juarez. County Judge Ricardo Samaniego says he wants community input and partnerships as a way to avoid using tax dollars to build the possible project. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Checking your El Paso traffic. I-10 eastbound at Yarborough. The Yarborough exit ramp is blocked due to a stalled semi. I-10 westbound at Artcraft, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. Montwood Drive eastbound after North Yarborough, an injury accident reported there. And a crash at Yarborough northbound at Alameda Avenue. You can take Lafayette or North Loop Drive as alternates. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Severe Weather Center. This is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We continue to deal with warm and windy weather, and it looks like those winds will not cooperate much overnight either. Now, they will eventually decrease after midnight, but we are expecting more winds again for your Wednesday. Thursday looks to be a little better with the winds, but we're also looking at a cold front coming in on Wednesday night that will cool us down for Thursday. That cool down won't last long. We're back in the 80s over the weekend.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. If your company needs to spring into efficient hiring, then check out Indeed. Their powerful hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Anyone can get long COVID, even Caitlin, age 20.
I got COVID in November 2020. In January, I started having long-term problems. I was a varsity soccer player in high school, and now I get winded just from walking. I can't remember things. It's just unbearable.
Getting vaccinated against COVID-19 is the best way to prevent long COVID. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is a leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
Before your day is done, Brakemasters has already helped thousands of people get back to their families safely. Get your vehicle in Brakemasters shape. Download coupons at Brakemasters.com. Only then can you say your day is done.
Brakemasters. We give you an honest break.
This report is sponsored by Brakemasters.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. Keeping you informed and up to date. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the, various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. Yeah, a lot of commentary going on here. Again, it often takes on its own form and fashion over there. The Facebook page is more or less the main one, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, because that's where the Thunderdome of comments is definitely going on right now. And, anyway, if you want to call in and add your own 2 cents on the subject we're talking about here today or the things that affect us here in the borderland, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot of stuff going on that we certainly want to talk about. I mean, immigration has been more than a little bit of a focus lately here, but economic development, the stuff we see within the borderland region is also important to me, which is why we get to it a bit here. So again, thanks to our guest from a previous hour, Robby Gray, editor of El Paso Inc., detailing some of their recent work and reporting and continuing reporting on how we're looking at business currents affecting our area. Because as some others posited earlier, there are very serious things going on in the world. I'm still, and we are on this program, still going to focus on what affects us here. And if you don't think that our local economy is at all important here, I don't even know what to tell you. I don't even know how to make that argument because, there's something about fools and dragging down to your level and beating you with experience. Anyway, again, if you want to call in, the number to do so and add your 2 cents is on 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. because, I mean, we got a lot of stuff going on in the region here. Again, New Mexico, the state of New Mexico entering into their special session right now. It's just fascinating the differences across state lines about how it's handled here. Essentially, the power to call the legislator in the session in Texas is solely the power of the governor here. So Governor Greg Abbott, it's pretty much at his discretion, versus New Mexico. It is something that could be done in an extraordinary session called by, I believe, 3/5 of their legislature calling for it. So it basically ahead of that, because there was a lot of calls for it already coming out of their last legislative session that left a, major spending bill actually vetoed by the governor before the end of that session. There was some push for it. So Michelle Lujan Grisham, governor of New Mexico, decided to get back in the driver's seat there and make sure that she is staying in control of it, because similar to Texas, by calling it, she is now setting the agenda. So a couple of things being looked at there: public expenditures on a very large level, payments going out to individual New Mexicans of potentially $500 to $1,000 being discussed here. Probably more talk having to go about this. This is expected to be a very short session with some appropriations. The weird nature of it is really that there was over 500 different appropriation items for specific projects listed in the bill that failed at the very end of the New Mexico state legislature's last session. And there's a lot more going into this, but it was kind of a little bit of its own political kerfuffle when the governor vetoed it, saying, there's too much there. You need to be able to justify it to New Mexicans and be transparent with it. And now, leaders of the House and, the legislature in New Mexico saying it was all listed in there. What's going on? So probably going to come back with a smaller spending bill in the order of $50 million or so, depending. But again, how that'll then affect some of the other expenditures, because, of course, New Mexico has been very focused on things like public spending, the changes when it comes to the, spending for education and expectations coming out of the legalized cannabis that is now happening statewide there. So we'll see what the outcomes of this session are. We've got some, reporting going on coming out of it here. Probably more to talk about a little bit later in the week, if the session even continues on that long, to see what the results are going to be. Sum total of what we might see here in the borderland is, among other things, a point was made that with the legalization of cannabis and the, at very least in our area, hundreds of thousands of dollars probably being spent on it, that, there might be further infusion into that, though the reasonableness and responsible spending of that also comes to mind here, because spending a lot of money that literally then goes up in smoke. I know it's not just smoke, but that's the way I think about it the most often, because I've never really partaken of any of this, but I've definitely never really seen edibles being used. I knew people back in college that were definitely sparking up, but, that's why I call it up in smoke anyway. But of course, that reminder happening out here that it feels more like a PSA to mention it here, that, if you go north from here, even from the Las Cruces and Sunland Park regions, you're going to run into those checkpoints. Heck, you go any direction within New Mexico from here, north or east, heck, even west for that matter, you're going to run into those checkpoints. So just keep it in mind and keep it clean, because you're going to have a bad time otherwise. I would think that everyone would have thought about that already if they're really going to get into this, but, maybe I'm giving way too much benefit of the doubt here, because what I really want to see beyond the expenditures and the tax rules that are probably going to come out of the whole pot situation in New Mexico is how it affects other businesses. Some of the trickling out information about like headstands and such is saying that they're seeing a bit of a boom, which is probably a good thing and expected, as there were further expenditures happening there. So if you want to talk about infrastructure or personal infrastructure, I guess that's one way to look at it. But the real impact to the community, again, some of the very early estimations pointed to hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe $500,000, I think, in total from kind of in the local community, the local spending here. So whether or not that really is driving things remains to be seen here. But further beyond that, we are looking at, of course, other subjects discussing and affecting us here, including that public art project here in the city of El Paso, or rather the county, but within city limits, at Ascarate Park. Again, it's you want to see it from our news partners over at CBS4 Local. They've got one of the better renditions there, that it's kind of this slightly skewed, almost picture frame looking thing that then has a pretty recognizable doorway idea in the middle of it, and that is being suggested for inclusion at Ascarate Park, with, again, some idea of there being no or minimal public expenditures on it, even despite the pretty hefty price tag of $3 million. I mean, it makes sense. We are talking about it being essentially complementary, and with Ascarate Park's location, pretty well within eyesight and comparable in size to the Equis over in Mexico. Now, it doesn't, at least from any of the renditions I'm seeing, don't think there would be any of the internal infrastructure. I mean, I think at one point within the Ekis there was like a restaurant or something like that. It does look like there might be an amphitheater built around the base of it here. So, I mean, whether or not it'll actually end up being involving major public expenditures is the question that is really on most people's minds here, because it's an effort right now. Nothing is actually being built yet. This is all pretty much in the proposal investigation stage from everything I'm hearing. But given some of our people out there that were very concerned about public art projects, particularly in our audience here, very curious to know what y'all think about it. And just the idea of it, again, the full quote from the designer and artist behind this, who is find his name here, Pedro Francisco Rodriguez y Delgado, the designer, again, of the Ekis that you can see right across the border of Mexico, saying the sculpture is meant to show not what we are, but what we want to be, to show the grandiosity of this city that expresses with modernization and the contemporariness that it needs. The Ekis monument in Ciudad Juarez is a national monument. This sculpture, my emphasis here on the El Paso one, or the Ascarate Park one, to continue the quote now, this sculpture would be binational. This sculpture is for the border, for the fronterizos, for both countries and both cities. Also further describing it as two thresholds that unite, and one integrates with the other one to express the symbiosis between both cities. And some commentary already happening on that about the connection between the cities, whether or not you feel about policies between it. I mean, I guess the way I look at it, there was a satellite picture that used to hang in my house before I moved out and into my own life here. But when I was growing up, a great satellite picture view of the area. Now, you can kind of get it if you look at Google Earth, but this was a high resolution one without any of the street markings, any of the clutter that you get when looking on most of the online maps here. And you'd be hard pressed if you didn't know exactly where to look to find the actual line between Juarez and El Paso, Ciudad Juarez and El Paso. And that's just kind of emblematic of the connections that do exist between the city. Now, whether or not policies in place are good, that's absolutely what we debate here. But to deny the connections that exist between the cities, as some have posited, is just not recognition of reality in my mind here. Now, again, whether you like the way it's being handled right now, that's up for debate, and we'll certainly get to more of that here. That's going to take us through our next break right now. Again, we will take a call or two if you want to squeeze in at the end of the show here. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We'll get to more of this discussion, those calls, at least one of those pound 250 calls coming out after this break. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking your El Paso traffic. I-10 eastbound at Yarborough. The Yarborough exit ramp is blocked due to a stalled semi. I-10 westbound at Artcraft, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. Montwood Drive eastbound after North Yarborough, an injury accident reported there. And a crash at Yarborough northbound at Alameda Avenue. You can take Lafayette or North Loop Drive as alternates. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples is a one-stop shipping solution for small business with packing and shipping supplies and services. Right now, get 15% off UPS Ground and 20% off UPS Express shipping services. Offer ends 4/30. Details at staplesconnect.com/services/shipping. Ship at Staples.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. A staggering 8 million tons of plastic ends up in the world's oceans every year. If current trends continue, our oceans could contain more plastic than fish by 2050. Do your part. Purchase items made from renewable or recycled content and recycle whenever possible. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/earth.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
We're planning a trip to Spain later this year.
But our Spanish
is pretty bad. So we're using Babbel.
Babbel's conversation-based method teaches you real-life words and phrases. And with Babbel's interactive, bite-sized lessons, you'll remember what you learned.
There's no easier way to learn another language.
Ahora hablamos español.
He just said, now we speak Spanish.
Babbel, language for life. Now try Babbel for free. Just go to babbel.com. That's BABBEL.com.
Let's talk about America. Not taxes or tweets or the issues that divide us, but how incredible our country is. Whether you come home to a crowded city street or sleepy small town, everyone deserves to live in a clean, green, and thriving community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working with millions of people like you to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Learn more at kab.org. Together, we can do beautiful things.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I get all my news from you.
News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Rounding the bend on the end of the program here. Some of the things we're working on for you for future shows. More discussion about, well, the local real estate market, among other things. Had some startling stats from some groups out there talking about the contested nature of the El Paso market, ranking top in the nation. Yeah, number one list that we don't really want to be on, but hey, here we are. What the realities are behind that and what it means for, well, you and me. Talking about that coming up here, as well as some other things involving the Great Resignation, what actual data shows on a more state-by-state basis. Some of the things we're working on for you this week and in coming weeks here. But as I said, we'll squeeze in another quick call here if we want to, and we will get to that pound 250 call as well. Right now, we do have Jesus in far east El Paso on the line with us here. So we got him right here. So, Jesus, thanks for joining us.
Yes, I hear the radio show every day. I'm on my way to work, so I just want to interject that that as far as the citizens of El Paso, we need to make sure that our politicians are investing the taxpayer money on the streets, because El Paso has a lot of bad streets everywhere, and also the drainage in the Far East. Every time it rains, the water accumulates. So I'd rather them fix our streets and our drainage than to spend money on all these, like what you were talking about, that ornament stuff, like, compared to Juarez.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Even those lights on Airway. We need to worry more about, the traffic is growing and infrastructure is more important than having all these ornaments that, we want to see people see when they're driving through El Paso.
I mean, yeah, the roads have come up as, it's been a lot of stories out there about that lately. At least one outlet, I want to say, is asking which feels most like an Old West trail. Because, yeah, there's a lot of bumpy roads out there, and that's the primary gripe of the city, I would think so. We've had a lot of road projects coming in from TxDOT and some of the state highways up right outside our offices here on Mesa. That project, while that was going on, was so fun to go through. But I'm glad it's over with now, even if there are some still issues along with that, some other things that didn't happen. But I don't think you're alone in your assertion there that there definitely needs to be a focus on infrastructure and roads, though unfortunately, last I heard from, I think, the city of El Paso, is that there might be another bond coming out in terms of infrastructure projects and then focusing on roads here. So that may be happening, but not exactly in a way that, I'm not finding a lot of favor out there in the community when it comes to the idea of another bond.
Yes, because there's a lot of potholes on South Hinesfield. And also another thing too is that, we pay taxes to have have good roads, the interstate, all the roads, but it seems like not enough funding or enough money is going to better our roads. And the other thing that I want to mention quickly is that that's why I'm saying it's important for people to vote and make sure that your representative from your area, make sure that they're trying to better your area as far as any issues that you have throughout the city.
Absolutely. You'll definitely get agreement with me when it comes to that, of people being involved and knowing what's coming up. Again, we got a couple of city council seats that are going to be coming up here in this term and in this time of elections coming up in November. So we'll keep talking about that and certainly talk more about that as we get closer to November.
Yeah, the only other thing I'll say is that, like I said, I've been here all my life, and I think El Paso is like 5-10 years behind on expanding the roads, that we're not keeping up with the amount of cars that are now on roads all over town. So all this construction should have been done like 10, 15 years ago. We're running behind the game. But that's all up to the city and TxDOT to make sure that they should have done this a long time ago. But I see accidents every day. The traffic is bad all over town with construction. So the leaders need to take that in account when they plan to make the roadways better. But that's all I have to say for today. And thank you for taking my call.
No, sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one out there. I mean, okay, the perspective I take on, I remember growing up that it took you about 15 minutes to get from less than 15 minutes. 15 minutes or less would be the right way to say that. To get from just about anywhere in town to like downtown on I-10. And then I came back from college, and all of a sudden there was a lot more traffic than I recall having been there previously. So really, we're about 20 years behind, I would say, on a lot of these projects, because we were about good at that point, and then it has just increased ever since here. Really, if you want to talk about I-10 itself, that is having better part of 7 decades of deferred maintenance, and that's going to be the real mess of a project that's going to really upend a lot of things in El Paso. So I hate to say it's going to get worse before it gets better, but more to your point, and RJ also saying over online that Lake Album and the Rushing and Dyer Rivers, there's some more drainage projects. Some of the meetings I've sat in on, particularly in County Commissioner's Court, when it comes to drainage in Far East and in the Lower Valley, are serious and are going to take almost generational timelines of fixes there. But I do appreciate the point in the call there. You have a good one. All right, we got time for that pound 250 call, because again, at this point in the show is when we bring them up here. RJ also saying learn to drive in Dallas, be thankful we're here in El Paso. I still have some assertions about El Paso drivers, but in any case, if you weren't able to get through to the show here or had a burning comment or question that comes up in between programs, you can always leave us a message on the pound 250 system. Simple way you do that, you dial pound 250 on your cell phone, call it as a number, and then when prompted, you'll be asked for a keyword. Just say Talk El Paso, and you can leave us a message much like this.
This is Messiah Frankie. I want to share with you and everybody else out there in the Southwest border region some phenomenally exciting news. It has just come to my attention that this new platform being developed by the Donnie Dotard Doofus, the guy with the cotton candy yellow thing on top of his head, is going bust. It's going nowhere. It's a failure, which is not a big surprise. See, it's that he is the worst businessman in the world, but yet you conservatives out there, you think he's just such a wonderful yippee-yay type of a person. You folks are really, I don't know, either go read a book, I don't know, go stare outside and then go ask God or Jesus and find out what the heck's the matter with your brain.
Again, if you want to leave your own message, we have some undisputed users of certain ways to comment and call in on this program here, but this is available to anyone. Pound 250, say Talk El Paso as the keyword here. Okay, I think there's just a disconnect, just speaking frankly at the end of the program here, between how people choose or think about their elected officials. Sure, there are people out there that really like them and will find themselves supporting it, but actually, Barbara said it pretty well earlier, and it probably needs to be a bumper sticker. Policy is paramount when voting, because that's all it comes down to for me. What does it mean about what they're going to do, and how does it affect this here? Because there are plenty of people that I'd love to have a beer with, pal around with, that I want nowhere near elected office, and plenty of people that I think are probably weird and wouldn't like to be around that might have the competencies that are actually needed for different elected posts here. Just because you like someone does have almost no bearing in my mind on when it comes to who I'm going to vote for. And expecting people to go along with how you like someone or not when it comes to voting here is just senseless in my mind. And then the ad hominem that comes along with it. The idea that, well, if this is a person that has a bad character, therefore everyone should agree with me on that. How's that working out for you? I got to ask, because almost never it does, because it's assumption that, well, if the person I don't like has been proven as such here, and now you have to agree with me, that last part of then you have to agree with me, that simply does not bear out when it comes to, well, political opinions, among other things. But we're going to have to get into that more on future days, because we are out of time here for this program. Do want to thank everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. Seriously, y'all will help make this what it is, because, I mean, there's plenty of podcasts out there that go into specific issues, but the discussion about the issues, this back and forth, the interaction that we have, that's what's important to me. So stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles down on the road. Have a great evening. I'll see y'all tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound on the 375 Trans Mountain. Watch for a multi-vehicle crash that's blocking the left shoulder. Stay right there. I-10 eastbound at Yarborough. There's a stalled semi that's blocking the exit ramp. I-10 westbound at Reynolds. Watch for a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. And Loop 375 eastbound at Zaragoza. Lots of stop-and-go traffic in the area. Expect delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
He's one of America's most controversial billionaires, George Soros. All across America, Soros is funding far-left district attorneys for office. And once elected, these district attorneys oppose bail. They want early release for criminals. And in some cases, they won't even prosecute felony offenders. It's no wonder crime is spiking in major cities, and our police are under fire. Now, Rob Schmidt looks at the shocking situation on Newsmax. Tune into Newsmax and watch Rob Schmidt tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. And find out the real truth about George Soros and the dangerous district attorneys endangering our cities. You can find Newsmax on every major cable system. If your cable operator doesn't carry Newsmax, call them. Let them know you want it. Or watch Newsmax free on your smart TV. Or start streaming on Pluto, Zumo, Roku, and more. Millions are switching to Newsmax for news they can trust. Switch today and watch Rob Schmidt tonight.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Traffic's bad enough without Mother Nature adding to your headache. Traffic and weather all day. News on the hour with El Paso's News Radio. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690. It's KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. More sanctions against Russia may be on the way.